Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Anchorage Ice Tigers draft glory franchise mode here in NHL 23. So in last episode, we had the entire offseason, and this team is looking really solid, and the salary cap situation is probably the most concerning, though, because of the fact a lot of guys are signed up to long-term deals, which means we might not have a lot of money for our pending RFAs and stuff like that this offseason. Like, Bickle might be demanding more than $10 million. We still got Kolemainen, Farrell, Kalinin. Those guys are all pending RFAs. Like, we might be able to just barely fit into the cap again this upcoming offseason, but it is going to be very interesting to see how tight we are against the cap and all that type of thing. But anyways, like I said, our team is definitely starting to take form. I am going to be pre-recording this episode just because of the fact I am curious once again on how this team is going to do. But you can see our forward core is definitely the best it's ever been. The center depth is getting better as well because Claxton is up to an 80, which is great to see. We signed him to a ridiculous 8-year deal at $1.5 million in the offseason, which is awesome because I think this guy could legit be an actual third liner at best. Even if he's listed as a fourth liner or a depth forward for his entire career, he's still an 80 overall, and to sign him for 8 years as a 22-year-old, I think that is a definite win. And yeah, basically just our top line in general is much more improved than it was last season. Our fourth line's still a little bit weak, but that is to come with the draft glories. Eventually it'll probably be better, I think, with Walter. He should develop a little bit more because he's got that top 6'4" potential. Hull is still capping out, it seems like, around his 76 range, which is not great, but he does have good offensive stats, so I think I am okay with that, at least for now. And then defensively, we have a pretty good defensive core. I think I already decided on who I am going to be sending down between Kalinin and Farrell. I think it's going to be Farrell I send down because of the fact I think I need a better shutdown defenseman on this top six because we got Strachan, who's a good defensive defenseman, but Kalinin is a wonderful defensive defenseman. And then you got an OFD here with Harakala. Kolemainen's a two-way defender, and then you got a two-way defender and a DFD. So that would be basically 3 DFDs, 1 OFD, and then 2 two-way defenders, which I think is not too bad for a defensive core. So I think for now we'll probably send down Farrell to the AHL, but he probably will be in the NHL next season. And then you can see we also have Harry Neal and Mr. Sean Cox. Harry Neal, did he lose his abilities? Because I thought he had abilities last season. Did he have abilities, or am I just losing my mind? I think he had abilities, but I could be wrong. Maybe he didn't. But anyways, Cox, who's going to be making the NHL as a 19-year-old, which is awesome to see. He's actually already listed as a backup goalie after 1 year in the AHL, so he's making our goaltending tandem even better than it was last season. So we're going to send down Farrell, but this team is going to be looking pretty good for the upcoming season, and I think we should at least hit 40 wins. I know some of you guys probably are predicting around 40 wins as well, so I think that is definitely doable. It's definitely going to be interesting to see if we could hit that 40-win plateau. It's also interesting to see if this team could actually make the playoffs or not, because I think we definitely have a team that could make the playoffs, because you don't necessarily need the best fourth line in order to make the playoffs. But honestly, we might end up making it. So we'll see what the rest of the league is like, because we finished last year, I think it was with the 7th worst record in the entire league, and we ended up drafting still at 2nd overall. This is where Ricardo Hartnell is going to come into effect. He's going to be playing on our 2nd line this year. He might take away some goals from Bickle, so we might have to flip him around in terms of where he is in the lineup. Like, I could honestly move him down to the 3rd line with Claxton if he's not performing too well, because I know Fesserini at least could produce. And then, yeah, hopefully our defensive core produces pretty well in terms of offense and defense. And hopefully Cox has a pretty good rookie season ahead of him, because that would definitely help us out if we had 2 stellar goalies going into a potential playoff runs. Let's see what this team could do. And how old is the oldest player on our roster, out of curiosity? I'm curious on that front. The oldest guy on our team is Jorgenson, who's 26. He's dropped down to top 6 potential because he's not really developed much more, but still, I'll take it. So we have everybody on our rosters 26 and younger. If this team makes the playoffs and wins the Stanley Cup, I will be definitely impressed. So let's see what happens and see what we could do. I'd say at least 40 wins and hopeful that we make the playoffs. But honestly, at the same stage, if we miss the playoffs, it will kind of suck in a sense, because we definitely I feel like this team is ready to take that leap in making in the playoffs, but we'll see what happens with the simulation as we go 4-4 in the preseason. Not bad. 12 points in 8 games for Jorgenson. You'd love to see that. Honestly, also, if you guys have any predictions for who's going to win, if any of these guys are going to win any awards this season, you should also drop your predictions on that of who you think is going to win an award. Because honestly, I feel like Zykov could end up winning like a Selke at some stage, but the question is, which year is he going to win the Selke? Because he's winning a lot of faceoffs. It just comes down to, I guess, picking up a decent amount of points, having a good plus-minus, that type of thing as well. So let's go halfway through the season. Let's go to January the 1st and see how we do halfway through the year. But should be a pretty good season ahead, I'd say. We had a 9-5 win over Colorado to start off the season with, so that's good to show our offense is made of something. We're losing a couple games here early on, but we're still staying right at 500 to start the year, which is pretty much the same as what it was like last season, because last season we kind of like stayed around 500 for a lot of the year. But hopefully this team is ready to take the next leap. But we are kind of falling apart here early on. 7-11. 8-11. Can we get back to 500, please? Nice. Okay. 10-12. Yeah, it's a little bit of an inconsistent start, but then again, that's exactly what I expected with this team, is to kind of be like 500-ish. I'm not expecting too much of this team. Like I don't think we should be a playoff team necessarily yet, but who knows? Maybe we will be. Right now we're 5 games back of that 500 record. Now we're winning games, so maybe we'll get back to 500 here. And no, we won't. We'll be just under 500 again. So 18-19 at January the 1st. That's not too bad. A lot of regulation losses though. And we are only 3 points back of a playoff spot. So we're actually in a pretty good spot despite having 19 regulation losses. And Parrott's leading the team in points with 32 points in 37 games. So our offense has dropped off, it looks like, a little bit. Because no guys are point per game. Unless it's just better depth scoring. How is Hartnell doing on the second line though first? Not very great. I'm going to move Hartnell down to the third line just because I feel like he needs maybe less playing time. We'll move Festerini up to the second line. And we'll kind of like slowly marinate Hartnell into the lineup a little bit. So there you go on that front. Let's continue simulating. But if this team doesn't make the playoffs, it's not the end of the world. But I would like to see this team at least be somewhat competitive, like be a few points back of a playoff spot. Because if we have another like first like top 5 pick in this draft, we're gonna be starting to get up really close to the salary cap. Like we're already like getting close to the salary cap. So let's simulate the rest of the season and see how this team finishes off the year. There's an OT loss, another loss. Come on, boys. Let's stay at least above 500 if we can. There you go. There's 21 wins. Okay, now we're winning a couple games. I love to see that. It should be interesting to see if this team like just misses the playoffs or not, because that would be a good sign if we're just missing the playoffs. But I also want to make the playoffs in a sense. Like it's kind of a hard thing to say which one we should go with. We're a nice little winning streak there. But yeah, we're definitely having too much regulation losses in order to probably make the playoffs, I'd say, at this rate. Unless we get a wild card spot. Let me stop the simulation here. Let's stop the simulation right after the deadline, just because I want to see what we're sitting at. We're 30-30-3, so we got a lot of regulation losses, and we are 9 points back of a playoff spot. So we're probably not going to make the playoffs, unfortunately. But it looks like a pretty solid season nonetheless. So yeah, we're not going to make the playoffs, but yeah, at least we're definitely not going to be the worst team in the league, and we could probably hit 40 wins this year like you guys were predicting, so that's good to see that. Let's continue simulating and see if we could finish off on a strong note. There's still a lot of games left, so we can still make the playoffs, obviously, but don't really care if we make the playoffs or not. Depends on how we do in this last month, pretty much. Which we're winning a few games here in a row and getting some points in extra frame, which is nice to see. Nice. Okay, there's a lot of wins coming, which is kind of good. We might end up being able to jump up in the standings because of that. Or we're still going to miss otherwise. A lot of wins this month. Let me stop the simulation. We literally won almost every game this month so far. We're 41-32-4 now, and we are in a wild card spot with only 5 games left in our season. This team might end up just cracking into the playoffs with this last month's performance. Ooh, this is interesting. We got 5 games left. Let's take it 1 or 2 games at a time. Let's see. Pittsburgh shootout loss. That's a point still and a win over Anaheim. That's huge. Have we clinched the playoff spot yet? Not so far, but we are 3 points up on the Kings. And how much up on the other Western Conference team? 4 points up. We honestly might clinch soon if we get a win in one of these last 2 games, or last 3 games. Yeah, one of these win in one of these last 3 games, I think we make the playoffs. And they're all home games. First one against the Ottawa Senators. Come on, please, boys. 7-2 loss. Yikes. That's not what you want to see from a team that's trying to make it into the playoffs. We're only 1 point up on the Oilers now with 2 games left for both of us. It's going to come down to the wire. And then the Coyotes are 2 points back of us with 2 games left. Oh boy. These games are very important if we want to make the playoffs. Game against Florida. Please give me the W. Hey, 7-3 win. That's a huge win. With not a lot of time left. We are still in that wildcard spot by 1 point. We get 1 point in this game. The Oilers win the game. I think we make it still because of the amount of wins we have. If the Oilers win and we lose, we miss the playoffs. Basically is what it's coming down to. Yep. So we need the Oilers to lose this game, and we need to win this game, or even just get a point in this game. So let's do a real-time simulation of this game, because this is a very crucial game for this team. We win this game, like I said, we make the playoffs. We get a point in this game, I'm pretty sure we make the playoffs. So let's see what happens here. The first ever game we're simulating, and it's a home ice game. First period. 3-0 Anchorage after 1. Let's go. That's huge. Bickle beats Akira Schmid. Same with Grattan, the 4th liner, and also Hartnell, the youngster. 3-0 after 1. Shots 15-6. Second period. 4-2. Let's go. Pedersen scores for them. Heracala scores for us. And Foy scores for them. Let's lock this one down here in the third period and make the playoffs. Pedersen scores a goal that almost looked like it was shorthanded, but apparently was not. Come on, boys. Lock her down. Penalty kill. It's kind of scary here at this stage. But, I mean, if the Oilers lose in any fashion, we end up making the playoffs. So, I'm pretty sure. And we are going to the playoffs. With a 4-3 win over the Canucks, we are a playoff team, I'm pretty certain, for the first time in franchise history. The game-winning goal from Heracala in the second period. Let's go. Let's go. Here we go. So this team is a playoff team, I'm pretty sure, for the first time in franchise history. Let's see for sure. Yes, they are. We are a playoff team. We have made the playoffs, and we are actually in the first wildcard spot now. If the Golden Knights lose, we have the first wildcard spot, which is pretty impressive. No guys were point per game this year, which is interesting. So our offensive depth scoring might be better, but offense in general might have dried up a little bit, which is kind of weird. Let's advance a day, get those all confirmed. And we are not at the end of the season yet. We're waiting on the Golden Knights. Hey, look at that. We still win the best wildcard spot because of the fact we have more regulation wins. Let's go. Actually, the LA Kings jumped into the playoffs and knocked the Golden Knights out. Damn, our division was tight near the end of it. Literally, we tied with the Canucks in points as well, so we almost jumped up to third place. 93 points, and then the last team in the division had 86. It's pretty tight. But we made the playoffs for the very first time. Going to be interesting to see what this team could do in postseason stuff. You guys were right, though. The ones of you that said a couple episodes ago, or last episode, the ones of you guys that commented, actually, no, not last episode, but the episode beforehand, that said we might make the playoffs as early as next season. Well, this team has made the playoffs. We end up finishing where in the entire league? We finished 9th best in the entire NHL. So we had a pretty good season, especially right near the end of it. Goals for per game on average. Our offense still was not that great, which is kind of surprising. We were kind of around mid-table with 3.11 goals per game. Our goals against per game wise, though, we were not one of the best defensive teams either. Kind of around mid-table. So we're kind of like average in everything, but we made the playoffs. We allowed a little bit more goals than we scored. Power play percentage wise, our power play was really good, 22%. So our special teams definitely showing up there. And our penalty kill was also pretty good at 84.7%, which is around 10th, I think, in the league. It's not too bad on the special teams. 3 short-handed goals, 20-17-4 on home ice, but 24-16-1 on the road, and 8-1-1 in our last 10 games to get ourselves into the playoffs. So pretty impressive little run there at the end of it. Let's take a look at these player stats because this is where it's going to be interesting. So Derek Heath, 73 points this year, -4, but 73 points from him. Glad I locked him up for 7 years already at 9.5 because this guy probably also could win a bunch of Selkies. Very solid season from him. He is still getting better in terms of his offense, and his face-off numbers are really incredible as well. 56% on the draw this year, and he had 156 takeaways, so he honestly might end up winning the Selkie this year. We'll end up seeing about that after the playoffs. Avery Parrott, 70 points this year. Not too bad from Parrott. 34 goals. I don't know where that compares to his other seasons. Less points than last year. And also a worse plus-minus. Yeah, some of these things with this team is a little bit concerning, but it is what it is. Zykov, 65 points this year. That's good considering last year he had only 55, so his offense got better. How's his face-off numbers looking this year? 55% on the draw, so won a lot of face-offs between Zykov and Keith on that top 6. Claxon hit 50 points this year. That's really good. That is really good. Most of them are power play points, but still. We signed this guy for under $2 million long-term for 8 years, and he just had a season like that, so hopefully he continues to develop that way. Hartnell had 27 points in his rookie season. 18 of them were goals. Not bad. That's not a bad rookie season, I'd say. Not a lot of points, but he's scoring goals, which is what we brought him in for. He had a short-handed goal as well, which is kind of nice to see. So there you go on Ricardo Hartnell. Grattan had 19 points. Left wing wise, Bickle hit 74 points, 43 goals this year. So a pretty solid season for Bickle. He might honestly ask for more money than he's getting paid right now. He's kind of an interesting player because he's a great goal scorer. He's scored 40 goals already 3 times in his career, but it's like, how much term do we give this guy? Because his contract's up for renewal, right? So it's kind of a tough one. Fesserini hit 63 points. God damn. We're getting depth scoring from guys that I wouldn't expect, like Claxon and Fesserini. Both of them picking up a lot of points. Fesserini building upon last season. He was a +8 as well this year. Yeah, you love to see it with Fesserini. That's pretty good. He was a 4th round pick as well. Cox, 35 points is pretty good. Love to see that. 21 of them were goals. And then Hull, 20 points. Not too bad, but he was mostly 4th line. Jorgensen, 65 points this year. So his production's going down a little bit. Not as much takeaways as well this year. Interesting. So some guys' productions are dropping, which is kind of weird. Don't know why the reason is, but he's going to get some playoff time for the first time in his career. And only 11 points from Felix Walzer, but he is up to a 74. So his offense is improving. His defense seems to be improving as well. We'll see if he ends up actually becoming a top 6 forward. He was only averaging 7 minutes of ice time a game, so he wasn't really getting a lot of opportunity to get a lot of goals. Defensively, Zykov hit 42 points this year. That's pretty good for Zykov. Don't know if that's a career high. Yeah, that is a career high. He's still getting better. That's good to see. So there's Zykov. Moroza had 29 points. Glad he's locked up still for 5 years. Harakala had 28 points. Still 2 years left on his ELC. So his offense is getting better. Yep, his offense is getting better. Coley Minen, 23 points, not too bad. His ELC comes to an end this year, so we're going to have to give him more money. But he's still not much of an offensive producer at this stage. Strachan, 16 points. Glad I locked this guy up for 6 years at under $3 million. And Kalinin, 7 points in 82 games. He was not too bad in his rookie year. Goalie-wise, Harry Neal, 33, 21, and 3 with 1 shutout and 907 save percentage and 2.91. So another really solid season for Harry Neal. 3 assists as well this year. Wow. Yeah, Harry Neal is definitely doing pretty good. He's pretty consistent the save percentage-wise. Not as much shutouts this year, but still. And he's picking up a lot of assists. He's already got 7 assists in his first 3 NHL seasons. Well, 3 full NHL seasons. I guess he actually played one before as well, but still. Very impressed with Harry Neal. And then Sean Cox in his rookie season, 11, 12, and 2 with an 890 save percentage and a 336. Not great for a rookie, but he is only 19. Still lists as a 78, but he's probably going to get a lot of growth this upcoming offseason. So there you go. There is our team stats. let's take a look at who we're going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs in our first ever playoff matchup. I'm guessing it's going to be Seattle based on the fact they finished first. No, it's going to be Nashville. Okay. I'm down for this. We're playing Nashville. Nashville has home ice advantage, which is kind of weird considering they finished 42, 33, and 7. We finished 44, 33, and 5. So they must have had like something more with the ROWs, I guess. Yeah, I don't really know what the tiebreaker is. Maybe more goals for or something like that. But let's take a look at first on how they did during the regular season, because I am curious on how they did in terms of the standings. So if we go to the Western Conference here, we finished 4th best in the entire Western Conference. Nashville finished 7th. So how do we not have home ice? Oh, they won their division. So if we were in the Central Division, we would have honestly won the Central Division. So that's why Nashville has home ice, because they won the division, even though we finished above them. Okay, that's a little bit weird. They did also score 1 more goal than us during the regular season. They were much better defensively, well, actually by like 7 goals. Their power play percentage was worse than ours, and their penalty kill was worse than ours. Interesting. So we might actually be the favorites to win this first round matchup, but I don't really know what their roster looks like, so we'll have to definitely take a look at that. So let's see what these Nashville Predators are made of and what their forward core looks like. We'll also take a look at the playoff tree just to see who else is playing, and I think that'll be it for this episode. So, Nashville, this is what their team looks like. Top line of Eli Tolvin and Michael Misa, who was one of the top picks in one of the first-year drafts. He's up there with Mikko Rantanen, who somehow found his way in Nashville. Jeez. So that's a really good top line. That is a very good top 9. Tolvin and Misa and Rantanen all above 89. Second line's also really good. You got Tomasino and Mitch Marner found his way over there. Wow. And then you also have Kimo Lepisto, who is a young low lead. Is this guy producing? He is. Okay. So yeah, that's a pretty good top 6. The third line you got is a little bit weaker. They got Svechnikov, Foudy, and Kamel, but still Joakim Kamel had good potential, and he is not going to reach it, it looks like. And a fourth line of Melanson, Suzuki, and Athanasiou. Yeah, that's a really good team, on offense at least. The wingers, I'd say, especially on the left side, are a little bit weak, but the center depth is pretty good, and then also the right side is pretty strong for the most part. Kamel's a little bit weak for a third liner, but still not too bad. Defensively, they got Budaj and Fabro. So Budaj was a 5th overall pick back in 2024. More of a defensive defenseman, looks like, in terms of points, but he does score goals from the point. So there you go on him. They also have Mikey Anderson and Roman Schmidt, which is kind of a, well, I'd say Mikey Anderson's a great top 4 pairing, but Roman Schmidt's definitely weak for that top 4. And then the top 6 has Matt Waugh and Logan Stanley. So the defensive core there, not great, but then again, you do have Budaj, so you do have one stand out. And then goalie-wise, they have Scott Ratzlaff, who is definitely not that great of a goalie, I'd say. He was more of their backup during the regular season, it looks like. And Nico Dawes is their backup, and he had a pretty good season. So really weird 1-2 punch. And then depth-wise, they have Colton Ellis as a depth goaltender. He actually played 44 games for them this season, but now he is scratched to start the playoffs. So I don't know what they're doing with their goaltending, but whatever. They have 3 goalies that could all pretty much play as starter. And then they have Oskari Laaksonen, kind of a weak depth option, and Seth Roy, who was drafted in the first round of 2026. Who's also kind of weak. A forward that has ice pack, which is kind of weird. So a guy that blocks shots on the offensive front. So overall wise, I think we definitely have the upper hand, but it definitely comes down to us shutting down Marner, Misa, Rantanen, and Eli Tolvanen, and Tomasino. If we could shut down those guys and also Budaj, I think we definitely have a shot at winning the series. So it should be really interesting to see who ends up winning it for sure. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Anchorage Ice Tigers Draft the Glory franchise mode. So in next episode, we will take on the Nashville Predators in the first round of the playoffs as we look to win our first ever playoff series and hopefully get furthered in the first round and see what this team is made of. So guys, think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.